Welcome to the special meeting of the Public Safety Commission for Thursday, February 27th, 2025. We're going to call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
All right. Chair Carmichael.
Present.
Commissioner Gall. Here. Commissioner Kleinbaum is absent at this time. Commissioner Eschentrias.
Present.
Commissioner Skiba.
Present.
And Commissioner Wodnicki.
Present.
Roll call is complete.
Thanks. Can we get Commissioner Escontrias' mic turned on? Make
Oh.
sure we're, thank you.
You can leave it off.
No, it needs to be on.
Well,
You can
Thank
leave
you.
it off.
on the playback, you can't hear very well.
If I say something, I'll turn it on.
Okay.
All right, let's all stand salute to flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are at the point to approve the order of agenda. I'm going to make a motion to change the order of the agenda, moving J1 ahead of I and J2. I'm sorry, and yes. And J2 after J1.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any discussion?
What would be the point of moving those around? Just real quick.
We have guests for J3.
Okay.
And I want to, J1 is our city manager, so I want to be able to let.
Let them go first.
And then fire department. I don't want them to have to wait too late.
Absolutely.
Any other comments, thoughts?
All right. That was a motion by Chair Carmichael to move J1 and 2 ahead of I, seconded by Commissioner Skiba. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nice.
Awesome.
Okay, so approved, or so moved.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. There it is.
I saw on another commission meeting. I'm not that
Do I
good.
need a separate motion to approve now that the change has been made?
No, yep.
To approve
No.
the new order? No? Nope, we're
Yes.
good. Proceed.
Okay.
Nice.
Any blue folder items?
No blue folder items.
All right. Consent calendar. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes the affidavit of posting and
moved.
approval of minutes from November 18th, 2024, December 16th, 2024, and January 23rd, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gall, second by Commissioner Wodnicki to approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nice. You may proceed.
All right. Any excluded consent
No,
calendar?
no
items?
excluded items.
Great. We are at the point where item H, public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended for members of the public, both in person and online, to speak on any non-agenda item. This period will be open for 30 minutes, and each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the commission. Anyone online?
There's no Zoom attendees.
Anyone in the audience?
There's 2 audience requests, no e-comments. First audience request is Jim Mueller. Jim Mueller
And this is for non-agenda items.
for item H, correct?
Evening, Commission. Thank you. It's always a privilege to speak to you, and it's one of the great things in our community that we have access to air our views to the commissioners and to the council. Okay, thanks for listening to me last time and considering adding cannabis distribution to your agenda. And I think that was a great move. Now, I'm concerned particularly about home cultivation, which is allowed under the law, the AUMA law, beside the fact of any other distribution, retail or otherwise. You can have up to 6 plants. Now, my concern is this, is that this product, which is fairly which would be uncontrolled in how it's grown and processed, could get loose in the community and be distributed around, especially since we have kind of a densely packed population. And so I'm hoping law enforcement can enlighten me. Have you had any concern or experience with this problem of homegrown product getting loose into the community, perhaps kids getting a hold of it or anything like that?
They wouldn't be able to address these comments.
Okay.
Yeah, it
or
wouldn't be
so-
appropriate for
But
us
what
to
we are doing is
discuss
taking
at
the
this
note,
time.
and we could potentially get back to, because I know who you are. So.
That would be great, yes. And I'm hoping that you haven't had any, because I think that would be really bad. And you can envision groups of citizens getting together and forming sort of a cartel to black market the product. And again, as I say, the product is not tested or supervised in any way, so it could be contaminated, it could be too strong. And so any problems with home cultivated cannabis getting loose, I think would be a real problem for our community. And I'm happy to learn whether that has been a problem, because I'm sure it's going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next, I have Robin Eisenberg.
First, I want to show off my hat. I do know that, by the way, nobody has bird flu, right? Okay, nobody had raw milk, okay. So I know you've been visited by other business interests who represent delivery only in the city. And I think of it as just competing business models. And I'm coming to the Public Safety Commission because that's what you're interested in, public safety. So I do have some concerns, and I am a minority member, very minority, in a cannabis company that will apply according to the rules for the regular stores, the legal stores. So this is the concerns I have, because they bring up concerns, oh, well, delivery only, that's what's now. So is black market now. And apparently the kids are smoking something, and it's not from these legal stores. So I wanted to make just a few points. There are no legal stores in Redondo. There's some outside, but kids don't get it from legal stores. I mean, the rules, and I don't know if you've seen all the rules that the council put in place, even on the applications, it's going to be secure systems to go into the stores. It's going to be videotaping. I mean, kids don't want to be seen on a videotape going into the stores. There's going to be strict requirements to even get into the stores. So that's a big thing, is the security at a store. That's number one. So number two is buffer zones. Guess what? Delivery, black market. There aren't any buffer zones. The stores, they're buffer zones. And the council was really, really strict, and they've gotten what they wanted on buffer zones. But just remember, so if you just want to leave it to the black market and to delivery, there are no buffer zones. The third thing is normalization. I hate to say it, I'm old. I've been around since, well, the 60s. I was a really little kid, but in the 70s, I went to college. I hate to say it, but cannabis is normalized. And it's not making it more normalized, I don't think, because, again, the city council put strict policies. The architecture is going to be, these stores, first of all, I know that our store, originally we budgeted like $1 million to build it out. No, it's going to be more like, especially with tariffs, et cetera, it's going to be like $1.5 million plus. They're gonna be really nice looking stores on the outside and they're gonna be very discreet. Can't have any flashing sign. I mean, it's gonna be more discreet than anything. So normalization, it's normalized. Do we need more normalization? I don't know what more normalization could be. Something's normalized or it's not. So again, I know you've
Time.
heard both sides.
Thank you.
If I get bird flu, you guys are all in trouble.
Thank you.
You want to solicit if anyone else?
Yes.
Those
So
are
what to do then.
completed the written requests.
You're complete, okay. Any other audience members want to speak on non-agenda items? Okay. We'll close that section.
We will be proceeding to
J1,
J1, correct?
Redondo Beach City Budget Fiscal Year 25-26. Sneak peek from our city manager, Mr. Mike Wazansky.
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Pleasure to be here. Again, Mike Witsansky, city manager here, Redondo Beach. You are the first commission that gets the opportunity to provide input on the preparation of the fiscal year 25-26 operating budget and proposed capital improvement program. So as I've done with all of you for the last several years, about this time, usually March, sometimes April, this year happens to be February, get an opportunity to come speak with you and really have a dialogue about next year's operating budget and get a chance to get input from you. This isn't an opportunity necessarily for me to present to you. This is a chance for me to hear from you on concepts, ideas, areas of the budget that you'd like to see us focus on, perhaps areas that we have focused on in the past that you'd like to see us redirect. Really anything and anything regarding the budget that you'd like to talk about tonight. Happy to have a lengthy Q&A with you. I know you have a few other guests here tonight for other items and have a very robust agenda, but I'm here to answer whatever questions you might have and really get into some of the details on what we might be thinking for 25-26. As you probably remember, we, by charter, present the budget to the City Council by May 16th every preceding fiscal year. This year, that falls on an off Friday. We might get it out by May 15th, maybe a little bit earlier than that. We're starting the process a little bit earlier than we have in the past, which I think will be a good thing. I'll be in front of commissions all the way into April based on the schedule that I looked at today and gathering as much input as possible. Once the budget is presented to the council in May, they will have several hearings over the course of June before they'll adopt it. And of course, by charter, each year we strive to have an adopted budget by the beginning of the new fiscal year, which will begin on July 1st. Generally speaking, the budget is performing well from a revenue to expenditure standpoint. You might have tuned into our city council meeting last Tuesday on the 18th, where we presented our mid-year review. Revenues are tracking well. In fact, we felt confident enough to increase some of our forecast for our property tax related revenues by a little over $2 million because the forecast continues to be very strong there. And in fact, we have early indication that our assessed valuations for the next fiscal year will again be just about 5% higher than they were the prior fiscal year. So property tax in Redondo Beach continues to be a very big bright spot for us and a big help to our operating revenues and enables us to absorb many of our new expenses. So revenues are strong. I expect to see a little bit of growth on the transient occupancy tax next fiscal year from where we are today. So we'll see a little bit of a lift there in addition to the property tax increase. In addition to the Marine Avenue Hotel site, which should be fully online next year from a dividend standpoint, TOT standpoint. We'll also have next year the opening of the doors of the new hotel there at the old Legato site. They're trending to be completed this summer and should probably be in operation sometime early next fall, which will, in a full annualized year, we think accrue roughly $1 million of additional transient occupancy tax to the city's coffers. So looking forward to seeing that property completed and operational. We do have some other expenditure pressures next fiscal year that we're going to have to account for, as we oftentimes do. We have multi-year labor agreements with our various bargaining groups, and we do have some scheduled increases coming online for all of our various employees. We'll be building that into the budget that's proposed. And in addition to that, as I discussed with you all last year, we will have another unfunded accrued liability payment of just about $4 million next fiscal year. So it was about 3.5 this year. It's about 4 next year. And we'll be looking forward very much to the PERS assessed valuation structure that they'll give us in August to figure out what we're looking at for 26, 27. We're hoping to see some benefit from their more recent fiscal year increases in their portfolio. So those are the 2 pressure points. Another area that we're looking at and focusing on, and it relates to public safety to a degree because we do charge a lot of our operating expenses in both police and fire to the Harbor Uplands and Tidelands funds. But those funds are recovering from where they were during COVID, but are still lagging. We are going to probably need to subsidize them a touch more at year end this fall. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Revenues are growing. We've closed that structural gap quite a bit over the last year. But I do think we're going to need another couple of years to get fully balanced there in those 2 funds. You know, and they are enterprise funds, and there are restrictions to the Tidelands that force us to segregate those revenues and expenses. But the Uplands really is an extension of the general fund. It's just an area that we've created to help track the monies that are collected through those leases and then the various designated expenses we have down there. We have dedicated personnel for police. We have dedicated personnel for fire in the form of our Harbor Patrol unit that both charge off to those locations, as well as Public Works, many Public Works maintenance personnel that are dedicated to maintaining that general waterfront area. So I don't have any real major concern going in the budget, but you know, things can change between now and May. We'll be looking very carefully at revenues. We'll be continuing to work with our third-party consultants that help us forecast the various areas, whether it be sales tax or utility user tax. We have some sources for TOT and property tax that help us make sure that our estimates are on point, and those have served us well in the past. So I do think it'll be a bit of a business as usual budget for us. We will have to, again, as I said, absorb some additional expenditures that'll be part of core. But I don't have any major pressure point that we're not currently anticipating. You know, I say that knock on wood. Don't want to invite any of those either, but I do think year over year it'll look fairly similar. We do have a couple of pressure points internally related to public safety. In the budget, we have some one-time set-asides for things like our drone program. We have some one-time funds set aside for our crossing guard program. For those who tracked our mid-year discussion last week, our core budget funds roughly 12 locations throughout the city. We have grown in the last few years the number of guarded locations to now 27 intersections for a total expense of about $560,000. Program's very well received by the community. Our parents and students love it, but it has gotten more expensive. And we have been patching that program with one-time dedicated funds the last few years. We're going to have a conversation, I think, about how many intersections we want to build into our core budget and how many we want to continue to sort of treat as pilot programs. We've reached out to the school district to see if they're able to help us with some of that funding as well. You might be aware that the school district also supports our school resource officer program. We have 2 dedicated SROs. The district currently reimburses us to the tune of about $100,000 a year for that program. That's another possible venue for them to help contribute additional funds to our safety personnel that relate to school activities. So a couple areas we'll be looking at as we go into the budget cycle. But other than that, like I said, really want to hear from you all. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Appreciate your input each year. And I'll turn it back over to you and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. We'll start, I see hand raised, Commissioner Skiba.
Thanks. Okay, now I know that after the budget was announced, a number of people were very unhappy with the holiday parking or lack thereof in the village and on the pier. So I'm hoping that's going to come up again for reconsideration. And the other thing was also, they also increased the fees for concealed carry permits from about $65 to $500 or $600, which I think is a little excessive. So I'm hoping they'll be able to adjust that one as well.
Okay. Yeah, those were LCW fee, I think, is built into our master fee schedule. I think council made that decision last year. We do evaluate our fee schedule every year. There's always the possibility of adjustments to that. In my history here, we typically don't see adjustments downward, but I'll certainly take that note here. The holiday parking fee waiver in the village in particular was a point of discussion last year as part of the budget. Historically, that's been, those parking fees have been waived for about a 3-week period during the holidays. This year, the council shortened that to about a week. There was a budget response report on that in the mid-year review. It did generate year over year a net increase of about $92,000 of additional parking fee revenue to the city. So the council will have another budget response report on that this year, and I'm sure it'll be another point of conversation as part of the process. So I'll take notes on both of those, though.
And for the pier also, which I think
Yeah,
we
yeah,
had before, free parking during the Christmas holidays, yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Anything else?
Commissioner Esconderias?
Yes. What concerns me is your comment of business as usual. It would appear that business as usual somehow in this city is to spend, spend, spend. Okay, and the idea is if we have money in the bank, or if we have a checkbook, obviously we have money and we can do that, okay? What bothers me as a homeowner, a taxpayer, is that somehow that it goes back to accountability, okay? I would like to see it in also, I think other people have brought this up, is more of a line item look and justification as to what we are spending our money on. Okay, and speaking to some people within the city, there's a lot more fraud, waste, and abuse that the city cares to acknowledge or to want to look at. Okay, and with that I mean is some of the things that we are paying on computer systems that are outdated or we have not used in a long time. So in essence, we're still paying for it, business as usual, which bothers me. Okay, the other thing I like to look at it within the budget is that anytime there's a budget or an item that we are looking at to pay for, that there are no sunset clauses on most of this stuff, and nor is there any audits, okay, as to how the money is spent, where we're spending this money, and whether or not it's reasonable and feasible. That when you bring on, for example, a new employee, especially the management level, because you just brought up the idea of the paying of our employees. Obviously, it's going to come up. It's a negotiation that comes up. And it appears that we have more fights, or not rather disagreements and concerns with more of our mid-level workers who are actually out there doing the work in the field, whether it's the police officers, firefighters, public works, or whatever. Yet you guys don't have a real discussion when it comes to management. And when you guys get your raises and when suddenly you bring somebody in, you build in a position that's making over $120,000, $130,000 or more. Okay, there's no discussion about that. Or if there is, it's very little. So my concern would be is the oversight as to how we are spending money to build in audits and controls, and indicating is that, are we spending our money properly? And and I spoke to the treasurer about this, and I believe they're looking at being able to look at certain items to wonder and to determine whether or not we are spending our money or the money is going where we're supposed to go. The other thing I would look at is what we could refer to as low-hanging fruit. If you sit there and try and rely on my tax dollars via my property tax, and then suddenly feel that, and I hear this bantered around, oh, we're a wealthy community. There's not a lot of wealthy people here as well. And if you keep telling people that, then everybody thinks it's okay to tax us and tax us and tax us, okay, or to kick up the price of a permit. But yet, you don't go after people who don't have a dog license. You don't go after people that are in the parks, that are vendors that could be paying things like that. Now, again, I get that that's not a hell of a lot of money, but a lot of it comes down to that. So again, the thing with this is I'm looking at is audits and controls, sunset clauses on where that money is going, and most importantly, that we are auditing and understanding line by line type of budgeting, because there's quite a bit that's out there that's just business as usual.
Yeah, no, fair points. I will say, to address first the line-by-line budgeting, the last few budgets, you may have noticed, we've actually added a significant number of characters and line items to help better elucidate what we are charging in the various characters that we call it, from a personnel standpoint to a materials and supply standpoint. The old budgets, you might recall, you've been around a long time, Gil, you know this, they would roll up into larger categories, big chunks of money. Now, really, department by department, division by division, you can see a fairly detailed breakdown. Now, you still have in some departments pretty big numbers in there, right? Your contracts number in the police department or the public works department is still a large number. So you may not be able to see every contract that's charged against that line item. But I will say we've made a pretty good effort to try to expand on that level of detail in the budget document, and we'll continue to do that going forward. On the audit side, we have built in and actually did fund in the last year some additional resources for 4-point auditing. Of course, we have the annual audit that we do every year with our comprehensive financial report. I understand that that's not exactly a drill down into certain areas, but the ACFR does provide line item spending, by department on a retroactive basis, and that document gets produced every year. So we'll continue to look at that, and I know audits has been a conversation I've had with Eugene, I've had with Eleanor, and it's something that we want to continue to do in the city. I will say on the concept of sunset, that's an interesting idea. We do, for the most part, spend our contracts and materials money on an annualized basis. We have a few multi-year agreements where we have commitments, but a lot of times our contracts are year over year. In fact, especially in the police department of late, a lot of the spending, the trialing, we've done the piloting of programs has been just that. We try it, we look at it, we report back each year with the council, and we evaluate it again and then decide, are we going to build it into core? Are we going to make it another one-time adjustment going forward? So
Are those written reports?
Those are written reports, yeah. Those contracts that are executed are all part of our staff report.
Follow-up, the after action.
Yeah, there's after action, there's budget response reports, there'll be year-over-year decision packages that sometimes speak to this. And of course, the contracts themselves have to go to council as part of either a consent calendar item or a discussion item, et cetera. So we do have a lot of dialogue on that, even for fairly minuscule expenses. And I think we treat every dollar spent pretty carefully. I mean, I know it may not feel that way. I know the federal government right now is doing its thing with its cutting, but we spend a lot of time department by department evaluating what we're doing and trying to make sure that we get the best value out of the money that we do have available. I will say, that said, the lion's share, and you know this too, the lion's share of our budget is committed to personnel resources, right? And we don't, and out of fairness to the people that we hire, we don't treat those as a year-by-year type of thing. We hire somebody, we assume they're built into core and they're going to have a job on a go-forward basis. Now, if we do something on what we call a part-time program basis, we might hire part-time employees that have more of an hourly role and therefore might be more of a year-to-year or assignment-to-assignment or project-to-project type task. And those folks, we do evaluate retrospectively, determine whether or not it makes sense to continue. So, but for our 99 sworn police officer positions, our various civilians in the various departments, when we create a full-time equivalent employment position, we look at that as a commitment. Now, when positions become vacant and we have tighter budgets, I've been around where we've had times where we'll cut those vacancies, we'll contract the organization and make sure we have a balanced budget. We've been fortunate, knock on wood, to be able to balance the budget the last few years with good, solid structural revenue. And property tax, no question, has been a big one. Now, the good news, as you know, under Prop 13, our existing homeowners aren't necessarily responsible for that delta, that increase. What's happening is in the conversion of homes, as they're reassessed, newcomers to the community who are purchasing homes are paying at a much higher rate, a higher assessment. And whoever's leaving that home at that lower assessment, now we're seeing that tax increment. So that's usually what's creating that larger 5% type increase year over year. It's the turnover of homes. Our existing homeowners are seeing the assessment that the county would provide across the board, which is anywhere from 0 to 2%, depending on what's happening with CPI. And to the extent we can, obviously, we try to pursue revenues through economic development, through transient occupancy tax, sales tax. That's where we really love to see money come in because it isn't as big a burden on our residents. But certainly appreciate your sentiments. And on the audit side, we'll definitely look at that going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. And I do know that you are spending more time because the budget report used to be like some 300 to 400 pages. Now it's closer to 600. So,
Oh, yeah. I
so
mean, and
you
look, we're
definitely
doing-
added more
Yeah.
line items. And I would encourage Commissioner Escantria to look at the city council meetings between, I would say, starting March and June. Those discussions that you're seeking to, to hear about, those happen during those months. And you can look at each of the agenda items for city council and really get a feel as to where the city council is moving, what's important, based on the feedback that they're also getting from us. So just wanted to give you that.
I will add one of the
feedback
things
as
that's part and parcel of the budget's unique to our process, and you're aware of this, Gil, the budget response report that we use, which is really supplemental material to the delivered budget. But, last year, I can't remember the total number, we had maybe 78, 80 budget response reports, and those are effectively questions specific to a particular expenditure or perhaps forecasted or planned opportunity for expenditure, a new program. And boy, we spent a lot of time over that 6-week period prepping that material, getting that to council for consideration. And that's about as transparent as you can get when it comes to, hey, what is this program costing? What is this program? Hey, I'm considering, what's a shade structure cost to add up Perry Park? Or, it can be that granular, We've had various equipment items. Hey, I want to replace, we just did this at mid-year. I want to replace all the plaques that were stolen in Veterans Park. What's the cost? Here's the line item, here's the expense. So definitely look for that in the future if you're curious. I think and we do a table of contents. It provides a pretty good summary of what's out there. So, but certainly appreciate the sentiments.
Okay. Anything else? Great. Commissioner
I can go.
Whitney. Yeah.
So I agree with many of the things that Commissioner Escantria brought up. I think that is a concern, oversight and auditing, especially not only as a commissioner, but as a resident of Redondo. Pertaining to public safety, and this might not even be for now, but in the future, Commissioner Escantria mentioned low-hanging fruits such as dog licenses. I know a lot of the issues that come before the commission have to do with quality of life. And our quality of life officers don't have the toolkit to really do enforcement like other communities might have, which is including like ticketing and citations. Whereas in my understanding is that a lot of it goes to the city attorney to handle when it comes to sort of an enforcement basis.
No, not necessarily. No, I'm happy to, if you'd like, I can sort of add
Yeah, of course.
some information there. So
Yes.
our prosecution's handled by the city attorney's office.
Yes.
Enforcement, which would include anything from citation to arrest, is handled by our police department, or in some instances, our quality of life unit, which might be a combination of police officers or code enforcement personnel, or more
Right.
likely our MSOs, our municipal services officers, who in some instances do write citations. Now, parking enforcement officer isn't writing a citation for dogs off leash, right? That's not going to be their charge, but they're going to write a citation for, parking violations, overstays, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Our dedicated MSOs in the quality of life unit might be tasked with some of those quality of life citations, leaf blowers or other types of things. Maybe more poignantly, probably our code enforcement officer personnel that would do that. So our quality of life unit, candidly, I would say is as built out as any police department I know.
Yeah.
It is very robust. We have a very dynamic stratosphere of ways to provide quality of life enforcement, ranging from the softer touch at that sort of MSO, CSO kind of level, to, the more traditional policing format with our actual officers. So we hit these issues very hard. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like, you still hear leaf blowers, you still see dogs off leash, sometimes you want to see more. Sometimes candidly, we get complaints about doing too much, right? Why did I get the ticket for the dog off leash? Why did I don't you have something better to do? So, it runs the gamut. You got folks who want to see us be more aggressive, and you have folks that say, shouldn't you be out there catching burglars and why you're wasting your time with this stuff? So we
Right,
have to
for
really balance
officers.
that.
Correct. I'm not speaking to the police. I'm talking
Yeah.
about your code enforcement or your MSO or things
Right,
like
and
that.
those fall under the supervision of our quality of life unit, who's
Right.
staffed with
Yeah.
our police,
I think
police
in
personnel.
my experience and some other residents and community members' experiences, there's no ticketing and there's no citations. And that would be revenue that would come in and help fund other programs. So that's something to think
Consider, sure,
about.
appreciate that, yeah.
Oftentimes, I know personally, when I call and contact, it's a letter writing campaign by the city attorney's office before handling any issue. And so I think having that citation capability under their tool belts or using it more maybe would be more effective and also bring in money to your budget.
Yeah, and I don't know if, I imagine you get fairly regular reports on the number of citations we issue on a quarterly basis or a monthly. I don't know if you're seeing that material or not.
We will be. We will be. We will
Yeah,
be.
I think that's documentation that we generate that information. There's probably an appropriateness in terms of period. I don't know if it'd be, like I said, quarterly, semi-annual, whatever it might be. But our folks write a lot of citation. I think you'd be surprised at how
That
many
would be
they write.
helpful. Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anything more?
No.
Hi, City Manager Mike. Jeff Gall. Oh,
Okay. I
may
have
I?
to announce you there.
Yep, go ahead.
Commissioner Gall.
Oh, thank you. You got to ask me nicely. City Manager Witansky, nice to see you. We both have a little bit in common with having a little bit of a poli-sci background, and I commend yours. And I did graduate work at UCSD in their International Relations Department, and have a number of friends who work at USAID around the world. And back in the day when the Kennedy administration, Congress approved USAID, India was a very poor country, and now it's the top 5 economy in the world. And there's some logic with some of the cuts to USAID. Unfortunately, my friends are very talented and I wish them all well during this transition. But this kind of leads me to the firing range. And the thought I had here was, why are we being so generous to all these other agencies spending our money, even though they're going to put some money into the coffer? And I mean, there's not a lot of numbers we can put out on a PowerPoint right now to discuss, but what are we getting out of that deal in terms of budgeting and spending so that everybody else can come over and practice with their firing?
Yeah, fair question. So what I think you're referring to is the money we set aside to design and actually, first step, apply for a federal grant
Yeah.
to fund a replacement shooting range facility.
Correct.
Right? So there's two things that we would potentially benefit from if we were to obtain the funding that we're seeking, right? Which is in the $15 to $17 million range. And one thing folks don't fully appreciate about that site, and if you've been down there, you might know, but it's actually co-located with our Park Services maintenance yard.
Okay.
So when we talk about replacing the shooting range with a new facility, we're also talking about replacing the park's maintenance yard. So that $17 million isn't just covering the new structure for the lanes, but it's covering the new apparatus, warehouse structure for our parks yard. So it's a combination projects one. So the benefit, of course, if we were funded to do this would be our officers could now train in a state-of-the-art facility. More importantly, they can train during the day in a state-of-the-art facility in a way that does not disrupt adjacent homeowners, residents, school kids, et cetera. So right now, our facility, if you've been in there, old wood structure, some of it falling down, hopefully not any more of it falling down, and it's an open air environment. So when officers shoot, it sounds like somebody's dropping a 2x4 off of a trailer truck up off 190th, and you can hear it for a mile around. It's awful. And the problem is they can only shoot in the evenings, right? Because out of fairness to the kids across the street at Towers Elementary, we don't fire during the day, right, while they're teaching. So our folks have a very limited period where they can actually practice and train and remain certified in their various areas. So the benefit of a new facility, right? Training in a state-of-the-art facility during the day rather than in the evening hours, which is more convenient for officers, and then allows us to train at times that doesn't force them to come in on an overtime basis or off hours. And then a brand-new Parks Yard, right?
How much would that cost on its own if you were just to do that à la carte?
The Parks Yard itself,
Yes.
oh gosh, I haven't looked at that breakdown in a while. I want to say it's probably 7, 8
Million?
of the 17. Yeah, it's
Wow,
probably
that's a
40 to
good
50,
benefit.
40% of it,
Yeah,
somewhere in
that's
that range.
interesting.
Don't hold me to that, but I
Understood.
want to say 40, 60, 40 kind of.
Wow.
And remember, some of it is just you have to scrape and you have to do all the soil remediation. You got to do all the stuff to prep the site,
Yeah.
right? In any configuration, whether you have a park yard there or shooting range there or vice versa. So, so yeah, really 3 things I'd say: new facility, which is always good, improved training opportunity at the right time of day, and a new park services yard. So that's our benefit. Now, the cost side of it, really, we're having to advance these design costs, right? Grant application fees, which is an expense. I mean, it's going to be about $500,000 probably to get the grant ready to go and submitted to the feds.
Got it.
Because you got to do pre-design work, you got to do basic environmental assessment, you've got to understand what the site plan looks like. So there's some expense there. That's part of the capital budget. That's something that council's grappled with over the last few years. That's dedicated funding. That work is underway. What we're hoping to achieve by bringing in partners that would also train in the facility is a fee waiver, the local match waiver. So if you go at this program alone, you're responsible for 30% of the construction cost. If you get the right sign off from the various federal agencies who you would partner with, there's a chance, I'm not saying it's going to happen, there's a chance the feds would waive the local matching requirement and fund the entire construction.
Wow.
So then, not only do we get a new parks, not only do we get a new gun range, but we get a federally funded new parks yard.
Wow.
So that's why we're spending the time pursuing this.
Thank you.
Look, with the current administration, I don't know if there's going to be support for this. It's a guess. So we're gonna tee up the grant application and the pre-design of the building, and we're gonna hope for the best. And then we'll track it from there. You know, the good news is a lot of the work that we're doing, we'd have to do under any new construction scenario. So I don't see us, say, chasing good money after bad. There's a chance the plan would eventually be shelved, waiting for the grant.
Right.
But it's money we're eventually going to have to spend if we are going to replace this facility. And look, we can't shoot in an open air 75-year-old deteriorating gun range for all of eternity. We're eventually going to have to deal with that scenario, that setup. So
Thank you.
that would
for
be the
answering.
long-winded response to your question.
No problem. And a short-winded thanks on that. My next question is, we've had for several months South Redondo, PCH, and Prospect, and knock on wood, Councilmember Barrett is listening. Hello, Councilmember Barrett. And given that people were killed on Artesia Boulevard by traffic accidents, and I know we've had people hit by cars at PCH and Prospect and nearly killed, is there a revenue breakdown or an investment breakdown between all the public safety improvements we're doing for North Redondo versus South Redondo? And is there a way that we can strive to make it more equitable for both North and South Redondo per se?
Interesting question. There's not really a breakdown for our police response or services, right? We patrol the community at large.
Like traffic calming stuff.
Yeah, so the traffic side of the equation it's really a matter of timing, right? So residential rehabilitation follows a engineering sequence, right? Every 3 years, we do perform what's called a pavement management survey. That survey gives us a pavement condition index for all of our streets in the city. And it tells us, if anywhere from 0, which is awful, to 100, which is pristine, right?
Right on.
We're fortunate. Our average rating's in the kind of 70 to 75 range, which is very good for a city like ours. But we use that data to determine when and where we're going to plan for our future road rehabilitations, right? And what format it takes. Full reconstruction, a small grind and overlay, which we call a rehabilitation, or a slurry, right? Which is usually a nicer street that we're trying to keep nice by just putting a slurry coat on. So we use that to drive our data, and then that moves our project around the city based on that schedule. A lot of the work that's coming up here with the next round is going to be in North Redondo. It's predominantly a Northern Redondo project.
Right.
When we do that work, we'll also do accompanying flat work, sidewalk work, ADA ramp improvements. And sometimes we'll work our traffic improvement or traffic calming efforts into those projects as well. So a lot of times the traffic calming is about timing of execution, timing of compatibility with the broader project schedule, and then whether or not we have an acute issue that we're trying to address outside of that cycle, right? Stuff around the high school gets a lot of attention right now. Stuff around the middle schools gets a lot of attention with the volume of e-bikes and everything else we're doing. We just did a big regional e-bike detail last week at the high school. We wrote 20 citations. Matter of fact, we impounded a bike. So that high school gets more attention just because of the nature of its student body. So in some respects, traffic calming in, around Paris and the high school gets maybe a little bit more attention, but trust me, Adams gets a lot of work. If you talk to our traffic engineer, Ryan, he could list you 30 projects in town that we're tackling right now. Manhattan Beach Boulevard just saw a
looks
major
very nice.
reconstruction.
Yeah.
A lot of traffic calming efforts associated with that work.
Bike lanes look great.
Yeah.
Final question, sorry, Chair. There's been discussion at the Budget and Finance Commission that I caught, and I know that we've won a lot of awards for reducing homelessness. Having sunsets on certain programs and services, have we had any discussion on that? And wouldn't that, now that we've solved the problem, scale some of those services back just a little bit? Maybe the other cities pick those up, or any thoughts on that?
Every year, right, budget's it's a year-to-year conversation. And obviously, the money we've dedicated, or in many cases obtained through grants,
Right.
has supported and supplemented those efforts. Each year, we'll look at what's coming, what's available to us through our grant partners, and we'll make determinations about the services we apply to make sure that they're covered in expense. And we'll do that as part of this budget cycle again. I'm not sure exactly what grants are sunsetting or coming on board. I'll tell you that we've had a lot of luck and success pursuing grant funding. I mean, 70+% or more, I believe, of our homeless services, I mean, that's a high level ballpark, is externally funded.
Wow.
So we'll keep doing that, and we'll calibrate accordingly. We've been really fortunate. Our success has led to additional success, and it's led to additional grant opportunities because people know if they give us those funds, we're going to execute them in a way that's effective.
Yeah, thank you, City Manager.
Can I follow up?
Whoa, okay. Commissioner Escontrias.
Okay, I'll try to make this, a couple of things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think what Commissioner Galt brought up, and the idea the city really likes to buy things and be the first and everything else, and then lend it to everybody. Okay? My concern is, how many MOAs do we have with the other agencies concerning the use of our equipment? The thing I would look at is that there's a difference between a mutual aid where a Redondo Beach officer, say, will go out. But if somebody wants to borrow the Bearcat and we want to lend it out, okay, and they don't change the oil, they don't run it in the ground, who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, good question.
Fire truck. We buy a fire truck, who's going to pay for it? Okay? My concern would be, and I get it that some cities are going to be reluctant to enter into an MOA.
Right.
I know of cities, I spoke to a sergeant yesterday when an agency borrows their Bearcat, they have to pay for an officer who drives it, goes up there, comes back, and kind of like we have to reassess, is it worth for us rolling this thing out? Okay, or what I shudder to think this, is that some of the tactical equipment out there, then they just go straight to the sheriff's department, and it is actually, funding is down. The second thing I'm going to bring up is that he also brought up, was on the homeless issue. Okay, I find it truly amazing that we have no audit of where all that money went. Okay, last time we asked about it, okay, we were told, oh, we're getting all this money in. But my big question on this, although we win awards, these are all anecdotal awards for what we're doing, and it sounds great. But I would ask, how much are we spending on each person? Is it $1 million? Is it, because all the, supposedly we got like $8-9 million or whatever for these people. I've been to the pallet shelter, I see how it works, but how much are we actually spending on this? Is it $45,000 a year per person? Or is it $5,000? And I think the biggest thing that we have, and this comes back to the line items as well, that I brought up, is that some of these programs we look at, they're all feel good, and they're probably doing some really good work. But at what cost? If it's going at 5,000 and it's working, hey, fine, we can actually do more. I get it. But if it's $1 million a person, and everybody who's involved in this is making over $125,000, okay, a lot more money than a base pay for a police officer, I would have serious concerns that a social worker is making more money than a police officer, or a firefighter for that matter. Why? And if those are the cases, that's what's going on, that we need to know about this to determine, is it, so again, the homeless issues sounds great, but I think somebody needs to come forward with an audit and give us some real numbers. The last question we asked last time when they said, oh, we got a grant, it pays for everything. I think the question was, what does it pay for? And then when I went line by line, what does it pay for? Oh, I'm sorry, it was a homeless court.
Yes, homeless court.
It was homeless court. Does it pay for this? No. Does it pay for this? No. All the major items that generally cost money, like the county, like, what was it? The deputy sheriffs, the DA, or the public defender, it didn't pay for any of that. What did it pay for? And then suddenly,
Disappeared.
crickets.
Yeah,
Can I, if I may, before,
Sure,
if I can cut in, so we're going to hear from SBCCOG.
Yeah.
SBCCOG at South Bay COG. They're going to do a presentation to us tonight, and CityNet is going to do a presentation. So some of that is going to be.
That doesn't answer the
Hold on,
question,
hold on.
because this is city run,
yeah,
not.
no,
Hold on, let me,
not
if I can
vendors.
finish, we got to let each other finish the whole thought. So some of that is going to be answered that way. You also have an email coming from me via Kyle that's going to break a lot of that down by vendor, by amount, by person, and it does the math. And it's an Excel spreadsheet that has all of that in there. Because if you recall, our city quality of life prosecutor, Joy Ford, in the December 2023 meeting, committed to getting that to you, and then they never showed back up. So I had my team go through every city council meeting, every grant, and every vendor that's in, if you watch the city council meetings, there's a section that's called payroll and accounts payable demands. We looked through every single one of those from the earliest city council meeting that's public is something like July 2021. So the folks at my company, there's 4 of us, we went through every city council meeting from 2021 all the way through 2025. We found every single thing that you asked for, and Kyle was out sick, so he wasn't able to email it to you, but you have a V1. Second, I sent in a public records request to validate what we found, to see if that goes part and parcel, like how far off we are. And the amount raised is not 9 million, it was actually 15 from the inception of the program to date. So there's a lot in there, and there is sort of an audit that has taken care of, been done. I sent you some of the ARRs, the administrative reports that have where the city attorney's office has put, like, here's a timeline, here's what came in, here's where it went, here's the vendor. The most recent one that came up at the city council meeting was the vendor that was supposed to build out 25 more pallet shelters. Where's the traction on that? So there's a lot more than I think that you assert is not being done that has been done. It just really it's tedious. I don't encourage anyone to sit and look through every single city council meeting, but I don't encourage anyone to do that. However, a lot of, hold on, still have the floor.
Yes.
So what I would encourage you to do is rather than take this time to say, hey, this isn't happening, this isn't done, is to actually ask, has it, and where can I find it? And I would strongly urge you to just go to each of the city council meetings. All you have to do is put control find and do homeless, because it's not in every meeting. But yeah, and if you click in J3, you'll see there's a bunch of attachments. All of them have the date of the city council meeting as the first part of, so you don't have to take my word that this happened at that city council meeting. You can go to that meeting and go, oh, that's when they talked about line items. That's when they talked about, here are all the vendors. That's when they talked about, here's how much money came in. So it's not all together, but it's spread out here, there, and everywhere, because there was a request from city council that the city attorney's office present an update on their enhanced response to homeless to the city council. So if you go through, you'll see, and I think a lot of your questions will be answered that way. When we're talking about 25, 26, from a budget perspective, I know it's a key hot button item for you is auditing and accountability. So I would actually push that on you to be accountable for what you're asserting to be true. Look through the city council meetings, and I think it would amend some of, or bridge some of the assertions that you're making with respect to some of these issues. My 2 cents.
May I speak?
Hold on. Commissioner
No,
Skiba?
I would like to respond to what you
Commissioner
just said.
Skiba?
I would like to respond
I
to what
know,
you said.
I know, but I am in charge.
Well,
of how
actually,
we-
no, because
so-
what you did was
so
also
S-
violated
S.
the
Contreras,
rules.
S.
Because the
Contreras,
rules
S.
say
Contreras-
you cannot do these audits. No, you made
Commissioner-
an assertion to me, I would.
Commissioner
I'd like to respond.
Escontrias, I'm going to ask you to
Will I be able to
calm down,
respond?
but you will.
Okay,
Commissioner
I will wait.
Skiba.
I just wanted to inquire, when they go to construct the new police station, and I understand it'll be several stories, if it would be possible to consider putting the shooting range on one of the lower levels, like they did at El Segundo and other places.
It's a great question. It is a major cost driver for the cost and ultimate facility total, and our Measure FP did not anticipate that. So the 93 million that we have anticipates a brand new police station. It will have a couple of levels. I don't know how many yet. That'll be part of the design process, but that significantly adds to the cost of construction for the facility. So it won't be part of that project.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but it's a good question, and we thought about it. It just drove the price to a point where we felt the community would rather
Okay.
be judicious about it. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh, I have a question.
No, no, Commissioner Wadnicki?
Out of curiosity, your grants, are they written by someone in-house or do you hire a consultant every time?
Yeah, well, we've, the majority of our grants citywide are written by our own staff. We do have a single contract with a group that helps and assists us with the bigger federal efforts and lifts that has expertise in that. And we set money aside a few years ago for that work. We haven't gotten through that initial contract, but we do get assistance occasionally. I believe the grants for all of the homeless services related grants have been prepared by our own in-house personnel and successfully funded.
Will there be a move in the future to reduce the amount of third-party consultants and move more roles in-house?
It depends. In some instances, it's more cost effective for us to move our functions out-house, to third-party consultants. And sometimes if we have enough volume and sustainability of work, it makes sense for us to create positions to cover that work. So it just depends on the circumstance. And a great example is in the community development department. We have on standby contractors to support plan check expedition. It wouldn't make sense for us to have a dedicated staff member to do that work because it's too sporadic. Another example is we have standby contractors that help us perform design work or pre-engineering analysis for capital improvement project delivery. Those costs are one factor, and we do that spot work, maybe one project a year, 2 projects a year, and they're able to be responsive to us. It would cost us more money to have a dedicated engineer to do that work. So it depends on the circumstance. And sometimes the circumstance will call for either of those scenarios.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kyle, is anyone online? No. Any member of the public want to ask a question of our city manager?
Thanks for coming.
Fantastic.
Happy
I'll
to.
close with this, Mr. City Manager. We as a public get to see the decisions you make, but we don't get to see the choices that you have. So we appreciate you coming and giving us just a little bit of insight as to some of the choices that are going to go into the 25-26 budget. Would love it if you could come back and potentially share, because we have covered a lot of sort of hot button items that I think will probably fall under, significant line items like under quality of life will be enhanced. response to homeless and how we're going to mitigate that. But if there's any way that you could, even if it's just a mini report, a mini administrative report, with some of the things that we brought up, to just go, hey, here's my answer to that. Here's almost like a BRR, if you will. That would be amazing if you can't come back directly. Because as you can see, some of these topics and we are almost like television program, right? If one person writes in, it represents like 10,000 people. So with us being 60, you had a population of 70, boom. So I would love it. I saw you take copious notes, and I know that that's who you are and that's what you do. But if there's any way that you could, and you have to worry about committing to it right now, but this is videotape, so we'll.
I always appreciate it talking to commissions, and I'll get through obviously April here and get the budget out, and I'm happy to come back after, the dust settles on the budget and we're done, and I would encourage you all to look at BRRs, and I'm happy to have individual conversations. Gail, if you want to call and chat about your other thoughts, I'm happy to have that dialogue with you if you want to do it now. But listen, always appreciate your input, always appreciate your questions. You represent our residents in this regard. Your purview is public safety as in this role, advisory to council. So I appreciate your input and thoughts, and will be available as reasonably allowed.
Yes, appreciate it.
I don't know if there's anything else. I don't want to leave Commissioner Escotrias hanging if you've got a question about homelessness or anything else.
I don't either. However, in the spirit of decorum and staying on topic, like this isn't a forum to sort of go back and forth with you about how I feel. It's about input to the 25-26 budget. And so I just want to make sure that we stay on task. And we also have other guest speakers here tonight. When we veer too far off, it tends to, there's a whole ecosystem that goes into this, as you know. Mm-hmm. So the person that is taking the minutes, that's going to be protracted if it's off topic, right? Then we also have to consider Eleanor, our city clerk, who is in the heat of doing elections. So then she's going to have to like review this and then tell Kyle, here are all the errors that we made. So I just want to make sure that we're being considerate of the ecosystem that makes up each of the
I think you're going to have an opportunity to have more homelessness conversation because that topic's coming up. But I'll leave you with this thought, and maybe I'm answering some of your questions. Hopefully I am. I can only think of two areas where we have dedicated year over year general fund money to contributing to the homeless program. Mm-hmm. That's in the form of our housing navigator, Lila Amura, who is worth 10 times what we pay for her services. I could say that unequivocally. Probably no single more valuable employee in our organization than Lila. Correct. And then the oversight and I'll say that right in front of the two of them too. It includes me as well. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, we do, of course, with the city attorney's office's commitment to oversight, we're dedicating resources to those positions. Yep. But when it comes to the shelter, when it comes to the homeless court, that's all externally funded. Yep. So we're getting a lot of bang for our buck there. I know it doesn't feel like that, and I think the questions are fair. What are we spending? It's worth tracking and noting. I think there has been a lot of that information that's been disseminated to council periodically. Mm-hmm. It's tough to have a single point for it because each of these grants come. It's a grant here, it gets spent. It's a grant there. So it's not an easy thing to just pin down and say what is the number on an annual basis because it ebbs and flows based on those grants. So
that said, but I can tell you have to look. You can't just say it's nowhere because I can tell you homeless court is $45,000 a year. How do I know that? Because I paid attention, right? I can tell you that the quality of life police officer, it's paid two different ways. One, $100,000, excuse me. One is $100,000 and another fund is $15,000. So like you have to like actually pay attention in order to, so that's why I'm kind of like, okay, we're getting into making assertions that don't have any fact based around them. And I'm not a fan of just putting inaccurate information into the ether.
Listen, nobody wants accuracy in our dialogue more than me. It's always helpful. Just would gently encourage all of you, stay engaged, stay active, stay civil through this process as best you can. I know there's been a little bit of trials, a few trials and tribulations along the way. Appreciate all the work you do. We take it to heart, and your input's important. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
I Chair, may I say something?
Yes.
Oh, it's just a comment. I didn't want to take up his time, but I will say this, that I understand the frustration sometimes with the questions that are posed in the sense that there is a lack of transparency, and we've all experienced that with the city, a lack of transparency. And so I understand where these questions are coming from, but we all also don't have the luxury of a team of people to go through past meetings and other things and minutes and things like that. And so that's great that you have that, but we all don't. So, so sometimes it's nice where we can just ask a member of our city.
And I don't disagree, and I'm also not frustrated, so I
No,
don't
not
take
your
that, yeah.
frustration, yes.
But I still stand by we have to go by what the agenda item was, and it's input to the 25-26 budget. So we were hearing from city manager
Right.
and then saying, like, have you considered this, have you considered that? To take it the next level down moves us outside of
I
the scope
understand.
of the
I
agenda.
don't
So I
want
just
to
want
have
to make
an
sure.
argument. I just wanted to make it
No
clear
argument. I
that,
just want to make it clear as
in
well.
my opinion, when you say to somebody, just look for it, we're commissioners,
No,
we
I'm
should be
saying-
able to ask.
I'm saying I'm saying, don't make an
Employees,
assertion that we're not being transparent when you haven't taken the time to do all of the work. If you're going to make an assertion, if you're going to lob that out, it's got to be based in credibility, because that erodes the credibility of the council. So now of commission. So we're
Right,
getting
no,
outside of it, and I'm happy to
yes.
have this
No,
conversation
no,
with you
no, I
separately.
just wanted to make sure
But
there
we
was
want to
some
get,
sort of.
we want to get J2.
clarity.
So thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
Discussion of recent fire events, and then we want to get to our folks that are going to give us some information on
Thanks for all your hard work.
enhanced response to homelessness.
Good evening, Public Safety Commission. It's good to see everyone again. I hope everyone's having a good start to your year. So I'll start with some of the stats for this year. I was able to get our data up to 225. So at the beginning of the week, we run 1,100 calls, steady on pace what we've normally done. 75% of those were EMS, 811. We've had approximately 25 fire responses, 13 were building fires. The other 12 were a range of rubbish fires, vehicle fires, stuff to that effect. So I tried to get mutual aid data. The system wasn't working properly. We had a little snafu with it. So rather than giving incorrect information, we'll get back to you next month with more info on mutual aid. I will say that our mutual aid numbers have gone down significantly since we've made Engine 6.2 a paramedic engine. We talked about that on a previous meeting. So some recent events, we did have one structure fire on Avenue G about 5 or 6 weeks ago. It's a large garden-style apartment complex. The fire was just a room and contents fire in one unit. Our community relief fund was able to place the resident into a hotel for a couple of days because she was displaced because her place was trashed. So that's good. That's a good benefit of our community relief fund. The crews did a great job, held it to the unit in the room involved. We had a quick knockdown, so good response to the fire call. A couple things we have going on within the department. We have 2 new hires. This is a really great thing. Number one, we're pretty much fully staffed now. That's the first time in my career. So kudos to the chiefs and everybody for actually holding these tests and getting lists together. The 2 members we hired it's even more special because they have come up through our program. They started as explorers. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, we started an explorer program. They were teenagers, high school kids in the area, started as explorers. They were standout students in that program. We sponsored them to go through paramedic school. They succeeded. They're very bright kids. They're twins. I don't know which one is which. They're identical twins. Now they did tests with us, and they finished medic school, and now we hired them. So they are Redondo through and through. So it's really good to see guys go through the Explorer program, develop. Now they'll be here for the next 30 years. So kudos to those kids and our Explorer program for helping them along the way. In addition, we had a boat captain's test, and all 5 members that took the test passed. So 3 members were promoted to boat captain positions. This has been a long time coming, probably several years. We've been waiting for these guys to have this opportunity, and to pass the test and do well. So a combination of our operations chief, Chief May, put together a good test. Everybody was prepared. Those members studied really hard, took it really seriously. And I know it's a big moment for their career, and it's a big thing for our organization to have those 3 members. Now we have a boat captain on every shift. to go along with our acting harbor master. So things are looking very good over there. That's a really good, movement for our organization. The last thing I'll mention is an engineer's test is coming up too. We have one engineer opening, so somebody be promoted into that position. So that's another thing that it requires a lot of effort. An engineer test is difficult. We have a lot of members. I think at this point, up to 10 people are going to take that test. So that's usually what I focus these conversations on what's going on in the agency. Our probationary members are doing great. I think the last 3 that are on probation are scheduled to get off in a couple months here, and I've heard nothing but good things about all of them. So yeah, outside of that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything you all have.
All right. Thank you, Chief Reagan.
Sure.
Commissioner Escondria? Can you turn his mic on, please?
Just a couple. What is your rank and position, sir?
I'm a division chief, sir.
A division chief?
Yes.
What is the rank of that? Is that captain, chief, and you refer to as chief?
Yeah, I'm a division chief. So if you're asking about the ranks, it goes from, firefighter, paramedic, engineer, captain, division chief, chief.
Are you considered to be middle management or command staff?
Command staff. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Skiba?
No question.
Commissioner Gall?
See if that works. I want to ask you very nicely, how many hours of time did Redondo Beach serve in the wildfires of Malibu and Altadena?
Hours are probably.
Palisades, pardon me.
Yeah, great question. As far as breaking down to hours, I don't have that. I'm not that great in math off the top of my head, but we had 2 engines were dedicated to that event for 16 days.
Thank you.
So that was that. And then we had an additional engine that spent 3 days as like a third strike team with one of our division chiefs. So yeah, and just great work by all the crews. They were excited, got a lot of great experience out there, came back, sharing that experience with the crews. It's been great. I know the town hall meetings we attended, they made appearances there and stuff like that. And it's been great to see the community support. People have been coming by the fire station supporting us more than I've ever seen in my career.
Wow.
So it's great. Everybody appreciates that. And our firefighters are really excited to get that opportunity. And it's good seeing, the development of everybody. Like I said, I've been here about 13 years. And in that time, these firefighters that are coming through now are way more experienced and way better than I was after 2-3 years on the job. The amount of training they're getting from our training captain and the chiefs and everything, everything's moving in a very positive direction. So I'm happy to see how good everyone's getting and how much experience they're getting.
Fantastic.
Just want to say briefly, thank you to the police and the fire for all the work you did with the fires and also keeping us safe here. Thank you. Chair?
Commissioner Wadnicki?
I think it's fantastic that you were able to house a displaced person after
I
a
know,
fire.
that's dope.
And I was wondering, how is that community relief fund funded?
So it's funded basically we do like charity events, so we have a community relief fund committee, a couple members that run that committee. And then basically what they do is they'll go to local restaurants, try to hold events, and restaurants will help with 20% of those proceeds would go to the community relief fund. And you have a couple of those events a year and anything else we can do to try to, if it's, during our open house, maybe they'll have like a fill the boot or something like that to fund that. But those are events that we basically do. Hopefully it doesn't happen too often, so the funds are there. But anytime we can do that, I know that person was really appreciative, and it's a tough time when people can't go back into their homes.
It's fantastic. I hope you can share those events with us when you come
Sure.
and present. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thanks for your time.
I will leave you with a quote because I'm on that tip tonight for some reason. Leadership is not about being in charge, but taking care of those in your charge. And it's so great to hear that you're taking care of us as a city, because we are definitely in your charge. And that one story about housing someone who was displaced, my heart is like, whoa. So thank you so much, Division
right.
Chief.
I'll see you all soon.
Cheers.
Austin, I have a comment.
Yeah.
I know you like that quote very much.
Yes.
And you put it on Nils' page. endorsement page, and you put it in the Easy Reader, I think it was Easy Reader. You know that quote is written by a famous author and speaker, Simon Sinek. That's what I mentioned.
Okay.
Mhm.
Are we ready for agenda item I? Okay. Discussion regarding requesting city manager and staff I-1. I'm going to make a motion to continue it. City manager came and spoke on one issue, and he's going to rotate the staff through. I believe, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Hoffman is going to speak in the next couple months, so that's going to be a rotating. He agreed, it's an email. It's okay, you're sick. So that's my motion, I know. You're right, right. So that's my motion on I-1.
Of second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to continue I-2. The reason I make this motion is Commissioner Wadnicki wanted to weigh in on this and on the list. We all made a decision to say what was going to be important and what was, I don't want to say important and not important, but what we were going to focus on for 2025 and what we were going to say is less important. So I'm going to motion to continue it based on that.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Oh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You can proceed to I-3.
I-3, I'm going to motion to continue. We agreed that we will revisit this in April based on what City Council does, if I recall correctly. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a discussion and possible action regarding an advisory memo to City Council regarding the truck route matter in the city of Torrance.
Yeah, I would make a brief comment on that. I think after the elections kind of settled, I think March would be a little bit untimely, so.
Oh, I thought we said April.
Yeah, April, I would,
Oh, even April would be on time because everyone takes their seat April 1st.
oh, that's right. But the April meeting's third Monday?
Yeah.
I think that'd be sufficient, but that's my opinion only.
Okay.
So moved if that's on record.
Okay.
Did you make the motion to continue?
Make a motion to continue.
And then
Second.
second by Commissioner Carmichael. Any discussion?
Can I ask a question? You want to hold it off until April because of the new council?
No, we already had said we were going to table it to April because there was things that were happening like with the public works and safe.
Understood.
Right, so that was already on the books.
Okay.
I just brought up a new, hey, no one takes their seat until April 1st. So that, and to Commissioner Gall's point, our meeting until the third Monday, so.
That's all I
Oh,
have.
You have your taxes done by then too.
Just wanted some
they're
clarification.
not. I may have a team, but we don't do tax, no, I'm kidding. Any other discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Wait, you have to say it. The motion has been moved and seconded.
Motion to continue I-3. All in favor to,
Made by
I don't remember.
Commissioner Gall.
Commissioner Gall, seconded by
I didn't hear a
Commissioner
second.
Wadnicki. Is that right?
Second.
Okay.
There we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get
Just
in
bear
trouble.
with me.
No worries, thank you.
Nobody called Kyle yet.
Okay, now we are on J3, discussion on recent updates, discussion of recent updates. I don't know, I'm trying to read without my glasses on, but discussion of recent updates on enhanced response to homelessness. We have two guests, well, we have three physical guests, but two entities as guests this evening. One is CityNet, who's our vendor, to analytics vendor, and I'll let them introduce themselves with greater detail. And then our homeless project manager from SBCOG, I can't remember your name, I'm so sorry. Bronson. So we will, if everyone's okay with it, hear from them and then discuss thereafter. Yes?
So moved.
Let's go with CityNet. Please introduce yourselves and what you do, and then go from there. Thank
If you
you.
could say your name into the mic, and if it's a tricky one, spell it pretty please.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Andres Hernandez, Andres, and I am the team supervisor for LA contracts with CityNet.
My name is Haig Minasian. I'm the census supervisor at CityNet, and I've conducted the last 3 censuses in Redondo Beach.
All right.
CityNet as a whole, what we do is we provide outreach for our contracted cities. We have a team of 2 case managers who canvass the city, I believe here Sunday to Thursday, from 7 a.m. to around 2, just to inquire it's the right time to back to Orange County. Essentially what we do is anytime we see an individual who might be experiencing homelessness, we pull over, we speak with them in hopes that they are receptive to services. Usually it takes about 6 to 8 interactions before they start building any sort of trust with us. We make sure that we make our faces known, get them out there. Once they do receive services, we enroll them using the HMIS, the Homeless, Metrics Information System, and essentially any homeless service provider within the LA County has access to the system. So if there's any person that came from a different area for whatever reason, we're able to look them up using their birth date in order to see where they have been, where they left off in their case towards housing, and where we can pick off. After that, once they tell us what they are looking for exactly, we meet the clients where they're at, whether it be through referrals to detox, referrals to local shelters in the surrounding areas. If they want to work on housing, we start working on acquiring all the necessary documents required by HUD. So these would be the birth certificate, state ID, social security card, and then 2 other forms that kind of confirm how long they've been unhoused. And then the second form would be, if it applies, if they have a disabling condition, which would have to be signed by a primary care physician. After that, they are placed on the housing list that is managed by LAHSA, the county entity for homeless services. And once they are selected for any sort of voucher, it can be through a local housing authority or the greater Los Angeles Housing Authority. They let the case managers know saying, hey, we have 72 hours to confirm this match. Please notify your client and take the appropriate steps. After that, we essentially go apartment hunting for them if it is not a specific program. Sometimes there are programs that are tied to a specific building within whatever city they were matched to. And usually those are a bit easier just because it's a direct application. On top of that, we also offer other services. One of our services is censuses. This does not necessarily mean we have to be contracted by cities to be able to access the census services. These census services are separate and can be done just as a standalone thing. I'll let Mr. Munician speak upon that.
Yeah. So it's an added service, and I think it actually works to the benefit when we are working also outreach in the city, because it not only informs your decisions, because I think we all believe in data-driven decision-making, especially with this stuff, but I think when it's worked in tandem with outreach workers and all those things, it's maximized and optimized for that purpose. It also, I think, benefits in terms of the grant funding that you guys were talking about. It helps back a lot of your guys' own policies and justifications for things from this third-party independent kind of census service that we provide you guys. I got a few more notes I want to mention to you guys. Oh, another really great thing this year, though, because we've done the census in Redondo for 4 years now, since 2021, and we've seen a really nice trend of a decrease in the overall number, but by also having this multi-year kind of census that we provide, we've been able to now do this comparison over the years. We're able to see chronicity between members of the community, the homeless community that have been here for long-term or not, as well as, and I was really happy to see this last year is the collaboration with Hermosa Beach, where we, in tandem with them, did a census together. And from those results and from that activity, a whole new like slew of like opportunity of kind of analyzing that data between the two cities can be done, especially with more collaboration with the neighboring cities. We see a relatively lower than average connection to the city of Redondo Beach and the people that we talk to, and that means that it's important to be engaging with your neighboring cities with that stuff. So yeah, if there's any questions about our last year's 2024 Redondo Beach census, I'm happy to answer them. But yes, anything else? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. We're going to take questions from up here, and then we're going to see if there's anyone online, and then anyone from the audience. Commissioner Escontrias.
No questions.
Commissioner Skiba.
No questions.
Commissioner Gall.
No questions.
I have questions.
Commissioner Wadnicki.
You, Andres, right?
Yes.
You'd mentioned that when they are placed on a housing list, it's through LAHSA. How long until they're matched once they're on the
Good
list?
question. Usually, it depends by case. There's several factors that measure what place in the housing list they are. So, like Mr. Medici mentioned, chronicity, how long have they been on the street? Those who have been longer on the street are prioritized. They are bumped up to the top of the list. It's in tandem with how old they are. Obviously, we want to take care of our older members who have been on the street and are more susceptible to weather, susceptible to crime that out on the street. So that, again, those two combined along with disabling conditions. So on top of that, if they have any condition that makes it difficult for their day-to-day living, especially being on the street, it does prioritize their selection for a voucher. So I will say folks who have been recently unhoused do have to wait a bit more. On average, I would say, I like to inform clients, it takes about a year, but it doesn't mean that it will take a year. For some folks, it takes 6 months, others it takes 3 months. For folks who have been on the street for a long time, all those factors, sometimes it takes a couple of weeks. And usually the vouchers that we get matched to are varied. So it could be a city, for example, in the city of Whittier, another city we contract in, we've had clients matched to the Southgate Housing Authority. We've had clients here in Redondo Beach matched to the Torrance Housing Authority. So it just depends. We do take their preference into account. It is not necessarily guaranteed. It is more of a suggestion. So when they are matched, again, it can vary. And those are just the independent ones, not counting LACTA, which is I believe the greater Los Angeles, and then the LACADA. It's just two separate housing authorities. Yeah, I forget the acronyms. They always get mixed up. But essentially, they oversee different areas of Los Angeles County.
Is the census that you conduct different than the outreach going out on Thursdays?
We set aside 2 days to go out on the census. I mean, so it's not occurring at the same time, if that's what you mean. Contract-wise, I wouldn't know the exact details of that. I think it's a separate service.
How does it differ from the homeless count?
So we're able to customize a questionnaire, a survey. So our censuses are survey-based. I know that the point in time count in Los Angeles County tends to be observational. So not only are you getting a more quality and not more quality, but a different sort of service, more accurate service and tailored to what you guys are interested in learning. He actually mentioned the documents that they're helping find for the homeless individuals. One of the questions that we added this year was, do you need help with finding these documents? What type of documents do you need? And we're able to then feed that information in a more specific way to you guys and address those questions. So it's sky's the limit.
Yeah. In comparison, I have had staff volunteer for the point in time counts held by Los Angeles. Usually those, they drive around and they usually kind of observe and try to guess. So let's say, for example, there's a tent on the side of the road. So one can assume that there's about 1 to 3 people in there.
Yeah.
So there's no engagement. We actually go out to these individuals, start a conversation, ask if they were willing to participate. We offer incentives in order to acquire the data that we are looking for. makes it more tailored to whatever the city wants. So if y'all are looking for a certain demographic, a certain answer to a question that you have, we can add that in the survey and be part of the process.
Yeah, I was curious. I've volunteered with the homeless count before, so I was wondering how the census differed. And I just have one more follow-up question. Thank you so much. You had said you tailor your surveys to what we're interested in. Who is that tells you that information?
We have a standard survey that we tend to offer, but we work closely with Joy Ford's office and those people.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, it's also in their contract.
Yeah.
There's a sort of a list of things. I've added it to J2. I know it's very deep in there, but I just want to let you know, so if you want to have reference.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Commissioner Skiba, yes.
Okay. I have a question regarding the vouchers that they receive. Now, are these vouchers from the local city housing department? And how long is the voucher good for? In other words, how soon do they have to find a place before it expires?
Good question. Average is about 3 months. There are a possibility for 2 extensions.
Okay.
And it is subject to whatever housing authority issued the voucher. So it's up to their discretion. It's not always the local housing authority. We have had matches here in Redondo Beach for their housing authority. But like I said before, we've been matched to vouchers in Torrance, vouchers, I believe, in Hawthorne as well. So it just depends. It's kind of like if the client happened to mention that they want to be housed in the South Bay area, cities that are in the South Bay area will essentially like, hey, we have a voucher opening here. This person fits all the qualifications that we're looking for. Let's send it out to them. And if they accept it, great. If they don't, then they can always deny it.
And do all these cities have housing departments like Lomita, Lawndale, wherever?
I'm not
They all
sure.
have a housing
Some
department?
do, but not all.
Okay.
Others, like the LACSA,
No.
they encapsulate a bunch of cities that don't have their own.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Sorry. You're good.
No, that was it.
Okay. Do you want to ask about homeless court?
No.
Okay. We got a question from Commissioner Escondrias about homeless court statistics, and you sent those over to me. We haven't had a chance to get them to the commission just yet. Kyle was out sick. It's in his inbox, but he was out sick. Do you have that in front of you to be able to go over? I know that there was like 19 that were in the program, and then there were some other, if not, I think I can probably pull it up, but I know that was a curiosity, not only like how much did it cost, which we now know is 46 grand a year, but we were trying to back into recidivism rates for folks that were in the homeless court. So I didn't know if you had that sort of at hand.
It is in my email. So 1 second.
5%.
Thank you. Look at you all. See, I love it. 5% recidivism. And that question has been sitting from Commissioner Escondrias since December of 2023. So I'm so glad you're able to provide that. And I know that you gave me a breakdown. So it's like 19 total participants and then only 2 exited.
Yes,
Oh, you have it? Okay, please.
So I have about people attended in 2024, 26, number of current active participants, 19, number graduated to permanent housing, 3, number graduated to interim housing, which means temporary home, but end goal permanent home of their own, 1, number of persons who were exited the program voluntarily, 2, number of persons who exited due to failure to participate, which there are a few, since some of them do catch charges here in the city, and they're not necessarily from Redondo, about 4. Number of persons who passed away while participating, 0. Number of persons transferred to mental health court. I couldn't quite speak on that because I believe Ms. Ford, she's the one who decides depending on their compliance or not. And number of persons transferred to criminal court that I've heard of are 2. The average attendance rate is 13. And actually, this last homeless court, our team was able to graduate 6 participants.
Fantastic, thank you. That's what, I'm happy you were able to sort of give us that because our questions now to Ms. Ford go from here to here. And I think that one of the reasons we weren't able to get that directly from her was it's just a lot of data. And it's like, oh, I got to remember what I did here, what I remember did here. So thanks for that. The other question that I have, if you could explain the sort of the central repository for homeless information, right? So if one of the caseworkers, like I think contractually we're supposed to have 2 people, right? And I think we're down to 1, and then a second just got hired. So, and they're both fantastic. I reached out to them. They're the ones who put me in contact with you. But there are certain things that you're sort of obligated to do in order to make sure that there's, one, credibility, but also impact. So if you could like lean into like some of those parameters, you don't have to like tell me the contract chapter and verse, because I don't know that I'm proud of this. I do know it, but some of the things that you've heard tonight about concerns about the, the homeless program in total, if you could just sort of like give us some bullet points. This is what we do. This, like, it's not that we have 2 caseworkers. This is the 2 caseworkers, what they do. They go out, they do outreach, and here's how they report. Same thing with the census. It's commissioned separately, right? Separately and apart from the monthly. And here are the things that are in the monthly. How many people were in their cars? How many people? So if you all can give us sort of that, I think that would help at least explain the program in bite-sized pieces. So that way, when we do the drill down, folks have at least a starting point that's of interest. Why CityNet? Why this report? Why census versus monthly? And how did we back into functional zero?
Yeah, we can start with the census portion. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you guys get a chance to read the homeless census report from this last year that we submitted to the city, there's a lot of that information in there in terms of our methodology and our processes. But we have a small but mighty team at CityNet that works. There's about 3 phases to the census process. So we could say, let's say a 3-month contract, let's say, and that's not the contract itself, but the amount of work that goes into it. There's the pre-planning portion, there's the census itself, and then the processing of the data and reporting of it. So we will go out with the city, with law enforcement, and create these hotspot maps of homelessness in the city and prepare those, and the survey itself, program the survey, meet with the city and create the survey and get it ready for going out into the field. This year we had 4 teams, one of which was censusing Hermosa, while the other 3 were in Redondo. It takes it's from like 6 p.m. to 11 a.m. and then 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. So we'll do a morning shift and then an evening shift to get those 2 different demographics at those times. And then it takes about a week later, actually, we give you guys a data summary report. Just kind of a quick summary of our findings and our total number, and then a month later we give you the full report, of our findings. So.
And then for HMIS, which is the system that.
Yes, that. Mm-hmm.
What we do is we document every interaction, anytime we transport someone to any sort of resources within the area. We are not limited to just Spot 8, which is the service planning area for South Bay. As long as it is not spot specific, meaning only people from that certain area can access this service, we make it a point to find whatever resources matches our clients' needs. So sometimes we do drive out of the city to get them the resources they need and or be sheltered in that area, depending on if they have ties to the city. A lot of shelters operate that way, needing some sort of tie, as the Palace Shelter does here for Redondo Beach. Once the information is input there, what we try to do is we map every sort of interaction. So that way, like he said, HMIS is able to provide a heat map monthly where the city can kind of see where a lot of the foot traffic is for our unhoused neighbors. What else? I mean, any sort of data you might want to ask. We all pull it from there, and then the monthly reports are summarized. So on top of that, obviously, it's all numbers. We know that sometimes our stakeholders want to hear anecdotal examples. So we do have success stories every month.
Yes.
And it talks more specifics, obviously abiding by HIPAA law. We don't want to give names or faces, but we do kind of give insight into what our case managers have to deal with and what success they've had with clients. Some of these clients have been out here for a while, usually are the most rewarding just because of the rapport building. And at the end, we see the progress, and HMIS allows us to look back at all that trial and tribulation they've been through. So if there's any specifics you'd like to ask.
No, I've read them all.
Okay.
So I'm good. And I look forward to the team like looking at them as well, because they're super insightful. I like at the end where you have that sort of hey, let's talk about, and you don't mention names, but you're like, they were in their car for this long, and now we've been able to move them to interim and so forth and so on. So, and to do that every single month, I'm like, wow, there's a story every month. Or I think you do no more than 2 people. I don't know if that's a decision you make, but no more than 2 stories are on there, but it's fantastic. So, Commissioner Skiba.
Thank you. How long can a person remain in the shelter program? In other words, is it a year, 2 years, or until they can transition to an actual apartment?
Are you talking about the program enrolled with us or shelters that we refer them to?
Well, like our pallet shelters that we have here, that Joy, and Lila are involved in.
So for the pallet shelter, it's actually operated by
Harbor Interfaith, yes.
Right, yeah.
So that'll be outside of the
they
scope
would
of that.
have better insight on how long they can stay there, but on anecdotal knowledge, since I've been here before, I've actually started here, case managing in Los Angeles, so
Okay.
I do appreciate the opportunity to come back here. I have heard of clients being there for about a year.
Okay.
A lot of the time is not because they haven't provided the documents needed in order to be housed.
Mhm.
A lot of the times they're just waiting for an opportunity to come through. So, i.e. the county
Right,
entity saying, hey, we have an opportunity, let's get this person housed.
okay. Thank you.
I may add that since the last 3 years, the interest in shelter has gone up about 10%. So there has been a steady increase in interest in shelter, which means there must be a good rapport with the pallet shelter experience.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the phone? Online?
No.
Anyone in the audience have a question for our CityNet folks? Yes.
What data did you provide that Redondo Beach concluded we're at functional 0?
There you go.
That wasn't, I don't believe that was.
And that's my presentation.
Table that. Okay. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great evening. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, you
Seriously.
guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
If you could introduce yourself and where you're from and
Yeah,
I
and then I
believe
have a presentation
exactly.
I hope you guys
Exactly.
have with you.
Uh,
My
so-
name is Bronson Chu from the Southeast Cities Council of Governments. I'm also a neighbor. I live in Redondo Beach, so thank you,
Fantastic.
commissioners, for serving. Really appreciate your public service as a fellow.
I have a procedural thing. Motion to receive and file.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye,
Was there a second? I didn't hear, sorry.
Oh, I heard
I
so
second
moved.
it.
No, I motioned.
Seconded. Commissioner Gall, motion to receive and file, and Commissioner Skiba, second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Ask Contreras, I didn't hear you. You didn't?
I thought I saw him say aye, I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't
I
hear.
think
Okay.
you did, yeah.
Okay.
Great. I'm gonna make it quick because it's getting late, so I won't go through all the slides for all of our sakes. And I do want to answer some questions. You guys asked some really great questions, especially Commissioner Gall. I'm going to answer one of your questions, and Commissioner Contreras as well, and also the lady's question over here. Just really quickly, you guys know what a COG is? If not, just really quick, we represent all the South Bay, and that's the map. So Inglewood, Lenox, Carson, all the way down to the peninsula. Our board is made up entirely of your council members. So Zane Obaji is the representative for Redondo Beach on our board. We serve at the pleasure of our cities. We do issues that cross city boundaries, so transportation, right? Everyone drives along aviation and cuts through multiple cities. So we work on things like that, environmental services, and I do homeless services for all of our cities. This next page, we got a lot of press and publicity on Functional Zero. We actually released that the same day the Dodgers won the World Series. And we still managed to get on the front page. It was amazing. Yeah, I mean, granted, it was the early edition, and we got cut on the later edition, but it was still really cool. And when I say we, I mean all of us, because this was a community achievement, especially the PD and the fire. They deal with the people experiencing homelessness on the streets every day, 5150s, all these different calls. So it was definitely a community achievement. And it shows that constituents love hearing about accountability and good news on the homelessness front. And so that's what we tried to give them. Now, why is Redondo Beach important? Why does this matter? Why do people care? I've been talking to people up and down the state about this because they're calling me like, we want to learn more about this. And the reason why Redondo Beach matters is because If you look at LA County, it's actually made up of 88 cities. And if you take out LA City and Long Beach for a second, the rest of the cities have an average homeless population of 174 people. Redondo Beach started with 261 in 2017. And so we're actually an above average city when it comes to homelessness. And if you even look at LA City, like communities like Palms or Sherman Oaks or San Pedro, their average is 400. So we're not that far off from the problem. But my point here is that it's not a 75,000 person problem. If every community just tackles its homelessness issue, we'll be at functional zero in LA County, because and Redondo Beach has proved it. So that's the message there. We didn't invent anything. All these cities here on this page, they're doing functional zero in some form. So some cities have decided they want to do functional zero street homelessness, like what we did. Some cities are doing functional zero veteran homelessness. Some cities are doing functional zero senior homelessness. So there's some nationwide consensus that functional zero is the way to go. And so what is it? It's basically saying we want to achieve the magical 1-to-1 ratio. For every person that's falling into homelessness, we want to get someone else off the streets. And so once a city has achieved that ratio, and we want to put a time constraint to that, we don't want to wait a year for someone to get off the streets. We want to get someone off the streets today. And so we set a goal of 90 days. And it's somewhat arbitrary. I was just thinking, if I were to go look for an apartment, it might take me a couple months to find an apartment. So I thought 90 days was a good time frame. So that's the definition of functional zero. And we want to measure in 6-month increments. And I won't get too much in how we do this, but basically we work really closely with Lila. We work really closely with the city. I talk to Lila almost daily. We get weekly updates on their data. And then we also case conference once a month on solutions for each individual person experiencing homelessness on the streets of Redondo Beach. And this page is basically the data. So we actually have a by names list, and that's what it is. It's everyone that's experiencing homelessness in Redondo Beach and what the issues are. And then from there, we can devise strategies and plans for every single person. And why this is important is because there's tons of resources out there. There's safe parking, there's motel beds, there's pallet shelters. There's so many different resources, and what we want to do with finite amount of funding is to match the resources to fit a city's specific population. And that's one of the tenets of functional zero. And so the results, what we saw in January to June of 2024 was that Redondo Beach did hit that magic ratio. So every 6 months, Redondo Beach sees 65 new people falling into homelessness. And that answers Commissioner Gall's question. Like, now that we've achieved functional zero, why do we still need all these programs? Why can't we sunset some of them? Well, the answer is because, unfortunately, it's not static. There's people falling into homelessness in Redondo Beach every day. It's almost shocking what I see. Some of your neighbors are not, you might say hi to them, they might be all smiles, but behind closed doors, there's a lot of stress. And to rent a house in Redondo Beach is like $5,000 a month. Apartments are $2,000-$3,000. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. And that's what I'm seeing all the time. In fact, we have a lot of kids in our elementary schools and high schools that are homeless. It's really sad. What happens when the bell rings and school's out, they get into their parents' cars and they just drive around and they're doing their homework in the car. And that's happening in our elementary schools. There's about at least, I want to say 30 to 40 kids in our elementary schools that are experiencing homelessness. And the saddest thing is we're seeing a lot of seniors. Lila just spent all of her Thursday moving an 80-year-old senior out. So you're following her on Facebook, you probably saw that. Yeah. So we're seeing, and I'm dealing with 4 seniors just today. That's because Social Security hasn't increased enough to cover the rent increases that we're seeing. So a lot of seniors, and you can't tell a senior, hey, just go move to Bakersfield or Texas. That's just not gonna happen. So an 80-year-old senior who's lived in Redondo Beach for 40 years, they're starting to fall precariously close to homelessness. And so that's why we still need to continue these programs, unfortunately, because we are seeing that inflow of 65 people every 6 months. Now, what we've done is we are able to get 66 people out of homelessness in the 6-month period. And the median duration, and this was shocking, we were able to do it in 14 days on average. So there are some people that you see day in and day out, but then the majority of the people were able to get off the street really quickly. And some of the more interesting statistics I have on here, like where are these people going? 33% of the folks experiencing homelessness in Redondo Beach are going into a shelter, which that was kind of surprising to me. You'd think that number would be a lot higher. But there's something in homelessness called trauma-informed care. Some people just don't want to go into a shelter because they've had bad experiences before. You know, in a congregate shelter environment, all sorts of crazy things can happen. So some people don't want to go to shelters. One of the things is the orange pie chart, 15% is reunification. We're probably the only city doing that really well because the county, they don't really have funds to do that. I can provide a same-day bus ticket for someone if they want to reunify with their mother in Texas or Florida. We've actually flown Lila to Connecticut to reunify someone experiencing homelessness in Redondo Beach with a conservator in Connecticut. So that's happened too. And so we can just buy a plane ticket today to get someone back home. And so they're no longer homeless on the streets. And that saves us a lot of money because to triage someone in a shelter is much more expensive than buying a plane ticket. So that's great. And then the other thing that I wanted to call out is we're not really successful putting someone back into the rental market. That we only do that 5% of the time because again, rent's just so expensive. And then a lot of landlords, they don't want to deal with the homelessness problem. So that's not really an option for Lila. And that's basically it for my presentation. And I can take more questions. And so I hope I answered some of your data questions. We do a by names list and that's how we look at it. So we know every single person who's homeless in Redondo Beach.
So essentially, functional zero is that we did not reduce homelessness, we just did not increase.
Excuse me.
Oh, I think,
Like,
maybe a public
because your
comment,
mic's not on.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
She's not allowed to speak.
Mr. Escondrias, from a decorum perspective, just stop. Just stop. When I
She's not
call on you,
allowed to
then this is a discussion. And
It is not
it's
a
hold
community
on,
discussion.
this is discussion, which means it
If
can
you
be
want to play the
open.
rules, follow the rules.
Mr. Escondrias, let's not do that.
Then don't.
It's open.
It is not open to the
For-
community to speak from,
It is,
didn't say that.
as designated by the chair.
okay, you've designated. Okay.
Yes.
Then please be clear on when you do that. Okay, thank you.
If you would stop talking over me, I would be able to do that. So let's cut this,
No,
and we're going to get back to the actual agenda item.
follow
Thank
the
you.
rules.
Mr. Escondrias, please control yourself. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it.
If
Thank
I
you for
may,
answering some of the questions that came up.
Yeah, and Escondrias, you had a question
And I think
earlier.
that but hold on, I have to call
Sure,
on
sure.
because
Go ahead.
there's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes, particularly with our new person who's doing the transcripts. So thank you. So if you could introduce yourself, that would be awesome. And that way we can have for the record your name and the question that you asked. And then we'll go from there.
So I'm a resident of.
Your name, yeah, please, if you could. Yes, please, thank you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Jasmine Allen, a resident of Redondo Beach. So what I'm understanding, functional zero is something new to me. So essentially what it is that we did not reduce homelessness. We just did not increase it. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, we did decrease it. So right now, so we started with 261 in 2017. We're down to, when we did the snapshot, we're down to 25 active cases. So functional zero is not absolute zero. We're never going to have zero homelessness. That's just never going to happen. But think of it as a hospital emergency room. When someone comes to the hospital emergency room, you want to triage them really quickly and get them out of the emergency room. That's what we want to do with homelessness as well. We want to triage them really quickly, have Lila do her thing, and then get them out off the streets as quickly as possible. So there's always going to be some level of homelessness, but what we want to do is reduce it to the point that it's very manageable and they can get off the street as fast as possible. Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
I want to follow up, but I don't want to break any rules.
It just wouldn't be appropriate for the meeting. So you guys can address the commission?
No,
You can address the commission for 3 minutes and then, but you can get their information after the meeting and obviously.
You can talk offline.
For discussion, the public is allowed to come up.
Public comment, she can have a 3-minute segment for public comment, yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Addressing the
But she
commission.
can only, do it once. So that's what I was going to say. So
Right.
yeah, you only have one. Yes. Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Anyone online? Yes, hold on. Anyone else? Anyone online?
There's no one online, and still no e-comments.
Okay. Commissioner Skiba.
Okay, all right. Excuse me, Jasmine? I just wanted to ask you, what commission are you a member of?
Oh,
The
no,
public,
wait.
member of the public already spoke
Yeah, so we can't.
in that case, so you wouldn't have a dialogue. She had already addressed the commission.
No,
So you would just
I'm
speak to her
asking
after.
if she's a member of a commission. A Redondo
Already
Beach
spoken,
City
she can only speak
Commission.
once.
Right, I know, but it's just, that wouldn't be what you do right now in the meeting. Like, you wouldn't just stop the business of the meeting and ask somebody in the audience something.
Well, because we just stopped the meeting to let somebody speak, so.
I
okay,
walked
all right.
away for a second, so I apologize. I'm half dead over here, so.
You have a
just
question for the
Bear with me,
presenter?
I apologize for the error in decorum.
Well, I have a comment, though, if I may. Okay, so when people are clients of these housing programs, and they can get a voucher and all of that, a lot of times, they're eligible to get an apartment that is a certain level, a certain cost, and they can't go above it. And sometimes it'll be $5 or $10 higher than what is allowable under the program. And it's really a shame that the client is not able to just hand over the difference themselves, but they're not allowed to, so they miss out on a number of places.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't design it, but I think the idea is they don't want the federal government to paying $3,000 for a one bedroom. And so they have to draw the line somewhere.
Well, I mean, it could be $1,940
Yeah.
that might be allowable under their voucher, but if it's $1,945, they can't get it because they're not allowed to pay the difference. That's all I was just going to.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gall.
Nothing.
Commissioner Wadnicki.
I was just wondering if you could explain what these different bars mean. There's just no.
Mhm. Yeah, that's actually coming from the CityNet census that they presented. Yeah. So this one where respondents usually sleeps. So they've interviewed in their census. You want to explain that?
It's just, what do the numbers represent in each?
Oh, yeah, I had to cut it. I'm sorry. It's different
out of our
years.
total count.
No,
And
it's
then-
different years, actually.
And yes, each one, so that's 2022, 2023, 2024.
The top is 22, 23.
24.
Okay, because
Yeah.
that's missing, so I
Yeah,
just
I'm sorry.
was
I cut,
confused.
yeah, good catch. I cut that off,
Thank
yeah.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. And we are right on time for you, and for you. It's 3 minutes. Item J4, discussion on, I added this there was a deck that the team presented to us. So this is on here for you, Commissioner Wadnicki, the deck that they presented, not only by they, I mean, Public Works Department.
Yes.
They presented to both us as well as the Public Works and Sustainability Commission. So I had this added back so you could get both of those presentations in case you didn't have a chance to see them. So that's what's on. If there is a discussion to be had, the floor is open, but I just want to let you know that that's why I have it on
I
here.
appreciate it.
Commissioner Escantria?
No.
Commissioner Skiba?
Not at this time, thank you.
Commissioner?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner White? No. All right. J5, discussion of crime recap, community policing volunteers.
Hello, everyone. Please bear with me in my current condition. In addition to the crime recap, we had a 6-month period of citation data from our TJ Aviation Corridor we were able to get for you based on that request from last meeting.
Thank you.
So there was 236 citations written. Primarily, the top violations were speed and red light violations. There was you may have heard, there was an officer-involved shooting. Obviously, we can't talk about it much. The LA County Sheriff's Department responds and investigates the shooting and handles the investigation. Our officers are okay. I will say that.
Is that in Hawthorne?
That occurred in the city of Hawthorne, yes. There's a South Bay Regional Task Force for DUI that operates on mutual aid, and they work all the South Bay cities at the same time. Our community policing report, we started class, since we've last met, we started, sorry guys. Started class 51 of the Citizens Police Academy. We have 19 students. So far, so good. They just had session 4. I went to a meeting at the Hermosa Women's Club, the safety meeting. They heard about my presentation at the Redondo Beach Women's Club and requested my presence. And a lot of their members are Redondo Beach residents and patrons, et cetera. So we get out wherever we can. And we had our very first ever Cookies with Clinicians on February 20th at KW Confections, which is actually a really tasty place, where we had the LA County Department of Mental Health clinicians come out, and we got the local business to serve up some cookies for us and some coffee, just to expose that aspect of the police department service to the public and allow them to meet our clinicians somewhat in the spirit of Coffee with a Cop, but with our DMH clinicians that work in the beach cities. Upcoming this Saturday, we partnered with Keep the Esplanade Beautiful to do a little cleanup and Coffee with a Cop. So we're going to clean up with them for the first hour or so. They meet at 9 o'clock on the Esplanade and Avenue I and clean up. And then we're going to go down to Avenue C and set up some coffee for an hour or so and chat with the public on a Saturday morning. We'll be doing Read Across America. I only have one event listed here, but we're part of Burrell Elementary's big event that occurs later in the week. And then we also are part of a slew of presenters that present at Hermosa Vista. Our public safety open house, March 9th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. right here. Be there. It's awesome. It's our annual tradition. It's very fun and a way to see and experience all of the different aspects of the police department, as well as some other fun stuff. There's food trucks and bouncers and such. We'll be participating at Toledo Western Night. It's one of the bigger events in the school district over there at Toledo Elementary. The city is hosting their extravaganza, and the police department will be there serving up popcorn from our community services unit. And then we will again be participating in the annual Harlem Wizards game, which is an Alta Vista PTA fundraiser on April 27th. You'll get to watch us go out and play some basketball against the Harlem Wizards. Unfortunately, we are like the Washington Generals. If you've ever seen a Globetrotters game, they are very good at basketball. So it's still fun to be a part of it, though. There's a lot of police, fire, and school district staff. Yes, sir.
Who's the leading scorer and blocker in our team?
I would say last year it was Officer Rustamzada. He's about 6'5".
Wow.
And I believe he played basketball, and he was throwing up some three-pointers.
Nice.
He missed a lot, but you shoot a lot, you eventually score a lot of points. And we have the law enforcement torch run coming up in June of 2025. Sorry. Our VIP report. Obviously, we're starting the year new. So our first month, we had 303 hours of service from our awesome VIPs who provide a number of services for us and help very much. Other than that, I don't have any other information for you, and we'll field any questions.
Commissioner Escondria?
No.
Commissioner Skiba?
Well, they're talking about the need for more crossing guards, and they talk about the dollar and about how much the school, they might have to do mutual sharing of the cost, but they're not giving credit to our VIPs who are out there doing crossing guard services.
Yes.
Because they deserve some acknowledgement, those guys.
Sure. Yes. Our VIPs do fill in at times if there are gaps, as well as some other civilian employees And even sometimes if we're in a pinch, a sworn officer will go out and do it. So we try very hard to make sure all those are covered
Yeah,
every day during the school year.
right. Thank you.
Commissioner Gall?
I'm good.
Commissioner Wadnicki? Right. Thank you. We're on item K, commission member items and future commission agenda topics. This is where we get to bring up either, this is the former referral to staff section. It's been renamed. So if there are any
Oh, I see.
agenda items, I remember you asked the question, Commissioner Wadnicki, if there's anything that you want to talk about at a subsequent meeting, this is the moment to bring up that topic, and then we will vote on it. If the motion to agendize that topic carries, then if you click on K1, you'll see where there's a running list of topics that we agreed on, and we will be scheduling the future meetings. So we'll start with Commissioner Escondrias.
Yes. I would like to make a motion for an agenda item that would allow for discussion concerning a recommendation to the city council on the amendments and updates of municipal codes, the 5-1.200 series concerning the licensing of dogs within the city. The discussion I would like to ensure that we do have is to amend it to require that any dog that is licensed within the city shall also be microchipped. And the microchip itself should be contained as well as in the licensing process with the licensing corporation, allowing that the return of animals can be a lot more timely, and most importantly, that it leads to less costs to the city itself in having to house an animal and or to be able to return an animal actually with a lot more frequency. I have studies and data on it that we can provide for the next, but I would also like to make sure that if we do that, that we have public discussion on that as well. And I would also ask in that the animal control be notified and requested to attend as well if they have input, or anyone from the department or anything else in order to ensure that we can do that.
So did I
You
hear?
wanna hone that in on the municipal code in and
I
of
got
itself?
it, Kyle.
Oh.
I got it. If you could condense that discussion on and then a possible
Amendment.
advisory action.
An amendment to the current 5-100 point, or rather 5-1.200 series of the municipal
Start from
code.
the beginning again. What code is it?
5-1.2 200 series, because it's 204, 203, 205.
Got
Okay. Municipal code concerning the licensing of animals.
And an advisory memo, right?
I'm
Because
sorry?
we're advising, you want us to advise city council?
No, I want to have a discussion to ensure that the community has a input as to whether or not they believe it's feasible, reasonable or not. And then also to provide you, or everyone rather, with information concerning statistical matters of the returning of animals and why it should.
I thought I heard you say, and you wanted to advise city council. So I
No,
was-
no,
oh,
that
So
once.
we're just going to discuss
Once
it.
there's a discussion.
Okay.
Upon the discussion, then at that time, if it is reasonable and acceptable, then a motion would be made to, as a recommendation to the city council.
Mhm. And that's why we put that typically together. That's like, if you look at I3, it's discussion and then possible action
That's
regarding
fine.
advisory memo. So that way it'll
Yes.
be, yeah.
For the microchipping of animals that are required to be licensed. Okay, succinct enough? Okay,
Yeah, sounds good to me.
thank you.
All right, motion, is there a second?
I second it.
Discussion? Commissioner Rodnicki, Commissioner Gall?
It's a motion by Commissioner Escondrias, seconded by Commissioner Skiba. Chair Carmichael. I'll do a roll call on these ones.
Okay. Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Kleinbaum?
Absent.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Escatrias?
Aye.
Commissioner Skiba?
Aye.
And Commissioner Wadnicki?
Aye.
Motion carries.
God love it. Any other items, Commissioner Escontreras? Commissioner Skiba?
Trying to think about that. Can I defer for a moment?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Gall?
Sorry, I was having a moment of
Yes,
levity. I like all these lists of action items we have for meetings. I know we talked about street racing and Chief Hoffman attending our meeting. I was just wondering, just a friendly ask, no need for a motion, but if we were to tie in those Lily Trujillo Puckett in with Chief Hoffman to share a little bit about street racing and whether it's just for, one-on-one racing and you're both drunk and that's what happened in that situation versus what happened at the Galleria and why we need to head off all these as a city and in law enforcement, keep that out of our city. I would like to prioritize her to speak, especially when we have a high-level management audience. Thank you.
Commissioner Wadnicki?
No, I think we have a fabulous list so far, and I look forward to having discussions on all of those topics.
All right. I'm going to make a motion to open the floor for discussion, but, so I'm going to make a motion to have a subcommittee for recognition of our VIP teams. And I don't know how to really say that, but I'll give you background. A long, long time ago, we had subcommittees that would say, hey, our volunteers in policing, head of the class, something, and we would solicit from local vendors, either a plaque or certificate making or that kind of thing. And it sort of carried some weight coming from the Public Safety Commission. So I would love for us to entertain doing something like that again. And so that's kind of the sort of the genesis for my motion.
I second that motion.
We'll do a roll call vote on that as well. And then you could probably take, let me just get through this vote real quick. Chair Carmichael,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Escontrias,
Aye.
Commissioner Skiba,
Aye.
Commissioner Wadnicki.
Aye.
Okay,
That's nicely.
subcommittee so formed and I'll include it on the next agenda.
Thank you.
And you could take volunteers too, I think.
Let's come up with the
And
charter.
It'll give me a moment to
Sunset date.
confirm procedurally if that's good to go. Sorry, guys.
It's fine.
I'm a little tired.
It's
Doing
fine.
great.
Thank
You're
you.
doing great. You're doing great.
You're drooping.
Anyone?
Can I make a motion to adjourn, please?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
Yes and no. You can second. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn at 9:13, the special meeting of the Public Safety Commission dated Thursday, February 27th, 2025, in honor of our firefighters, our, I can't think, our first responder community, in recognition of their hard work every day, and in particular, their service during the California fires in January. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So adjourned. If I could also just